I just thought I'd show you part of our Tobagia National Collection. This is the raised bed that houses some of our Tobagia plants that we've collected over the years. For those that don't know, Tobagias are often called pink agapanthus. You can kind of see why when you look at them flower shape. They're in fact in the same family as agapanthus, the Amaryllis family, but they're a different genus. You treat them very much like an agapanthus, though they're like full sun, a sheltered position and a well-drained growing medium, so mix plenty of grit in with them, it does the trick. These are a few of my favourites I thought I'd show you today in this tray here. This one is our own introduction, Tobagia Elaine Anne, a nice big flower head, pale mauve and nice and tall, especially when it matures to its full size. A few others here, this one here is quite distinctive. You might have seen this before, Tobagia Silver Lace, obviously so called because it's got that strapping silver grey variegated foliage and a mauve flower. Looks great, especially when it clumps up and forms a mature clump. Really good colour on that one. A few others here, this is a gorgeous colour. This is Tobagia Alba, so it's the white form of the Violacea. Really nice, subtle, bright white, that one. It's a gorgeous one. A few others in here, this is really interesting. This one here is Tobagia Hazel. Called Hazel, it's got a kind of hazel mauve flower with a really distinctive bright orange yellow eye to that one. This one you won't see in very many places, quite unusual. Certainly one of my favourites. And as you can see here, they grow at various heights. Some of them can grow sort of 2 feet tall. Others, like this little one here called Mashushu, is just a little dainty, delicate dwarf. So that one is tiny. Thank you.
Today we're going to show you how to split a Saracenia. This one's kind of outgrown its pot. This is Saracenia, it's a Moorii, green and white, beautiful plant. So what we're looking for is clear divisions. We're going to have to be quite harsh with this plant to get it apart. What we're looking for is to get some baby plants to pot up. So there's one division already, look. Each crown is technically a new plant. So it comes off with a bit of the rhizome breaks off. Some of them are quite tough. Now we've already got 2 nice divisions off that. So there's another 2, look. There we go. So I'm just going to take the moss off and tidy up the bottom bit again. Could possibly divide it even further, but I don't want to stress the plant too much. Probably not the ideal time to be doing this, but now, as you can see, the rhizome's got an open wound. I think different growers have different ways of sealing the wound. We just put a little bit of sphagnum on the end, and that basically, I've never known fungal diseases spread that way, so that's your finished thing. We're going to put it into I like to be relatively pot bound Saracenias, so we're going to put it into just under a 1 litre pot. Peat and perlite mix. As I say, there are other mixes available if you're not keen on using peat, but we find it's still quite necessary on the nursery. So you firm her in. Obviously in this weather you don't want to stress the plants more than they need to be stressed, because you have literally just ripped them apart, but they are tough. They're not gonna mind too much. And then pop it straight into a deep tray of rainwater as we've done there. There's the second division, look. We're just going to do the same with that. Again, you can see there's the wound from splitting it. So all we're going to do is, again, a little bit of sphagnum moss. I'm told they used to use this in the war to when they ran out of antiseptic and what have you, so it's obviously it's tried and tested. We'll put this one into another decent sized pot because it's a decent clump. So again, firm her in. Now these plants may not look the best again until next year, but that's what we do, is we split them, and a lot of these will be future sales plants.
Rosie Hardy, Hardy's Cottage Garden Plants. We're in our Kedar tunnel here, which is where we do all of our propagation. We're in the process of doing a lot of collecting seeds, and we're preparing them ready to sow them. And also at this time of the year we're doing cuttings. Now cuttings can be of all sorts of types. They could be tip cuttings, basal cuttings, root cuttings, and we also do lots of minute splits which then have to go onto a mist unit. Now at this time of the year, we're talking about August here, it is your last chance to be able to do these fabulous plants, the Penstemons, and you need to remember this is the last time that you really would be able to do them for you to have good plants for next year in the garden. Penstemons are a fantastic garden plant, and they're something that we do a lot of varieties of here at Hardy's. This one is really good. This is Penstemon barbatus roseus, and it grows in a slightly different way to other forms, such as this beautiful little thing called Three Pink, which has tiny little flowers, very narrow foliage. Or you go on to what most people think of as being your standard garden penstemon with these beautiful big tubular flowers and standing up above a slightly broader foliage. This one is Pension Victoria Plum, and she's a real queen. So they are excellent garden plants, but they all require slightly different treatment in the way of taking cuttings from them. This one, as you can see, is basal foliage, and then the flowers come up really tall and they're fantastic orange colour. They're really fun plant, this one. Now these you take from basal cuttings, and you would be taking your cutting down in here from a tiny little piece at the bottom. What you need to remember is when you're taking cuttings, have sharp snips or secateurs. So with this, you would take it and make sure there was a clean cut at the base, and you would make sure those bottom leaves had fallen off. Now it's got an awful lot of foliage here, which will lose moisture, and you need to reduce that in half. So what you would do is you would take it and just cut it like so, and perhaps even more, take the last couple of pair of leaves off there, and you have a really decent cutting. Now for a different type of cutting, you've got your standard type of penstemons, and these are done from tip cuttings. Now when the plant is as old as this, you need to make sure that you're using the really fresh stuff at the top. The best thing to do is not take your cutting straight from the top here. Go as though you're going to prune the plant and go halfway up. Now this is a nodal cutting, so you cut below a pair of leaves like so, and this is probably what most people would expect to take as a cutting. Now this is far too long. You must take it right up here. They are tip cuttings, and they are called tip cuttings because that is what you are taking. You are taking the tip. You can see there is a bit of stem here and a little bit of leaf. That will take and root much easier than if you had kept it as your large cutting like this, which is what most people would do. Isn't there quite a bit of difference between what you would do and what we do here on the nursery? With tip cuttings, you need to be able to take the cutting from the top piece. If the material has become really solid and snaps like that and is really tough, that is not what you want to be taking. You want to be taking this bit of material here, which is beautifully flexible and young, and that is where you would be taking the tip cutting from. When you've done a small handful of cuttings, make sure you get them put into the seed trays or cell plugs like this very quickly, so that you can get them onto your benches, or you can then water them and make sure that they stay turded. Make sure that they are actually pressed in quite nicely. Now most people at home would probably use a pot like this, and it's exactly the same thing. You just make a hole and you push them in around the edge, leaving a little bit of a gap between each cutting so that you go through, and try and do the same plant variety right the way through the whole lot. Now the one thing to say is that they will then sit there and be really good. I know I'm cheating here and I have put different varieties in there, but that gives you your nice cuttings put in, and then you would water them in well and put them into your propagator or wherever you have them in a cold frame. When you're taking cuttings, always remember to take the cuttings from really good, healthy plants. Take healthy material, good and young, but do not try and take cuttings from plants which look as though they're on their last legs and about to die. You will have no success. Healthy cuttings, healthy plants. When you have done your cuttings all around the edge of your pot, do not be tempted, just because you've got one left over, to stick it right in the middle there. That one is always the one that doesn't succeed. So just don't do it. Let the other ones go around the outside. You don't end up with a horrible rotten one in the middle. And always remember to label what you've done. When you come to watering your cuttings, make sure if you're using a watering can that you always start the water off outside the pot, then go carefully over the top, back over again, making sure that it's nicely watered, and stop it outside. Did you see how badly that dribbled out of the rose? If that had gone into your pot, your cuttings would be all over the place.
I'm just going to show you how to pot up Streptocarpus. I've got a really nice falling stars here, and it's about ready to be potted. It's got roots coming through the base, and it's a nice strong growing plant. I'm using this houseplant compost, which is nice and soft, and ideally get rid of all the lumps out of the compost before you start using it, so it's nice and friable. That Streptocarpus is in a 10cm pot, and I'm going to change it into a 13, so it's going up more or less from 10s to 13, that size. And first off, I just put a light layer of compost in the base, and then this is what I call like a jelly mould way of potting. So you're putting the smaller pots inside the larger pots, and then filling up around the outside. And you want to lightly firm the compost down but not compress it. If it's too hard and pressed down, the roots won't be able to go into it and start growing and using the nutrients that is in this fresh compost. So I'm just firming it down lightly around the outside before removing the central pot. And that should leave a hollow space exactly the right size to drop the new Streptocarpus into it. So I take out the central pot, and that leaves a space in the centre, just the right size to drop the Streptocarpus into. So pull out the label, put it to one side, and then just gently wiggle the plant out of the pot, and that just gets dropped into the new pot, and just firm it in slightly. Replace the label and water the compost lightly. You don't want to over water the compost, as it can get saturated. So a couple of squirts like that is all that is needed, and that'll be enough water in there for maybe about 3 or 4 days. And when you pot up, it's also a good time to tidy the plant up. So there's a few seed pods on here where the plant has flowered and the flowers dropped off. And I'm just going to cut these stems down at the base to tidy it up a little. You can also remove any foliage at this point that's looking a bit strange or gone pale or finished flowering, because the flowers come from the base of the leaf. That leaf still got a few flowers there, but it's an odd shape, so I'm just going to cut it off, and it makes a nicer, more rounded plant. Another plant I'm going to pot up is this rather tall Begonia luxurians. It's a quick growing plant and it is really ready for potting, as you can see by all that root at the base there. Now I'm going to go from this, which is a 12 centimetre pot, up to a 17 centimetre pot for this one, because I know it is a quick growing variety. So again, the same system, some compost at the base of the pot, another pot the same size as the plant's in at the moment, put it in the centre like that, and then just fill up around the outside. This is a good time if you find your plant is growing slightly one-sided on the pot. When you pot up, you can re-centralise it. And again, I'm just firming the compost down just enough so it will stay in place when I remove the central pot. So that comes out. I have the hollow in the centre. This one's going to be a bit more difficult, so I'm going to have to rip this root at the base. Won't harm the plant. And then squeeze it out of the pot. Well and truly ready for potting. That will love that new compost. Just firm it in and then water it. If you're going to water these plants by sitting them in water, just sit them in about 1 centimetre deep and then only leave them there for a couple of minutes, and that'll be fine for the next 3 or 4 days.
I'm going to show you today how to maintain your baskets a bit. This is the 9th of August today, and this has been fantastic since last October. It's just been full of flower throughout the spring and summer, and in the autumn it gives me loads of colour, and there's bulbs underneath that come up in the spring, and it has looked gorgeous. But I think it's fair to say it's not looking at its best at the minute. So I think now is a great time if you've got something like this. If they're looking lovely, don't bother doing it. Only do this if it's looking really ropey like this. There's 2 things you can do. You can either start snipping through and taking these dead heads off and doing it like this and tidying it up this way. But that will take you quite a while. But or you can go down and take your flowers off by going right down to the bottom and giving a turn and taking them out like that. But I've got a much quicker way, and they'll be back in no time and look lovely and neat again. So a bit radical, and you only do this if it's looking all messy. But basically, I'm just going to chop them back like this. I've got my scissors here and I'm just chopping away at all this foliage. And the flowers, I'm just taking the whole lot off here. And I'm moving on into it now a bit. And you'll start to see some of the plants that were in here before. I'll show you where I've chopped it down to in a second. I'm really chopping everything off. I'm going right back, as you can see. So here you can see I've got a little primula here from the spring, which is still there, not taking any harm at all. And I just keep cutting into all this. It looks terrible when I've done it. I can't say it looks good when I've done it, but it will shortly. And you'll see. Let's just keep going back. Try not to cut the crown. As you can see here, they're quite stalky, these are, so I'm just not cutting into the crown. I'm just cutting the leaves off at the moment to see what I've got. So here we go. So I'm getting there now. I hope you can see what I'm doing all right. Hope Richard's getting it for you, so that you can see it. Here I go into this here. So I've done a bit of a rough chop on this to start with, so I can actually see what I've got. I've not gone too low, as you can tell. And so you can see what I've got in there now. So now I'm going to a bit more there to chop off. And it seems a shame because they're still flowering these, But don't worry, these will give you some flower in the autumn more than likely, these geranium roseanne. They'll come back, and if you wanted you could cut these and put them in a vase so they haven't gone to waste, because the heucheras, leaves and the flowers can go in vases. Okay, so there we are. Been fairly radical with that at the moment. So there you are, there it is, all rough tidied. And then after that, then you've got to start going into it then a little bit, and really taking, that just takes a little bit longer, which I'm probably not going to do all of this right now. I'll show you something else in a minute. I'm going to tidy it up as much as I can and get it all nice and neat. And then I'm going to have a good look at it, see what's what. And then when I have tidied it all down to like really short, it's going to look like this one. And this is one I did 2 days ago. And as you can see, it's already starting to come back. The leaves are coming back. You'll get an odd one where you chop through the leaf, but that'll grow through and over. And this will be full in no time. And here's one that I did 2 weeks ago. And this is brass lantern, as you can see. And that's where I chopped it back to. I went right back to there. And as well as chopping it back, I also scooped all the soil out. Not all the soil, but I scooped it down to about there. And then I've top dressed with all this here, so that it's all okay. My bulbs are still in there, so it's going to all come up gorgeous again in the spring. But this will look gorgeous in a couple of weeks, like this one, especially in this hot weather. Now, if you do this at back end, it's too late really to do that then, unless you have to because you've got a problem. But if you haven't got a problem, you know, now is a good time to tidy up if it's looking a bit messy. So I've just come in here and I wanted to show you a little thing that you have to look out for sometimes with them. And this is like these little holes here. Don't know whether you can see them or not. This is classic caterpillar damage. And at this stage it's not too dramatic because this is just a little tiny thin caterpillar. But as they get going, they get bigger and they take more and more. And as you can see, they got big holes there. And then if you carry on, they go to this, and eventually they'll take all of that leaf probably. And so with this, all you need to do is just get your bug gun if you want to go that route, and if you don't, you can spray them with some diluted washing up liquid, and then it helps them wriggle and you can just pick them off. And that's how you deal with them. A lot of people think this is slugs, but this is not slugs, this is very definitely caterpillars.
Hi, I'm Alec White from Primrose Hall Peonies, and of course the peony season is now over and all of the peonies have finished flowering. But that doesn't mean to say there's no interest in the garden at all. Some of the varieties, particularly these intersectional ones, have still got pretty interesting foliage, and over the next few weeks they're really going to change colour through reds, oranges and browns as they begin to die back for the winter. So it's a little bit early to cut these back to the ground right now, but what I have noticed is some seed heads here. So we can deadhead these. Just going to cut it back like that and just take away the seed pods. So let's have a wander through the nursery. Peonies are pretty low maintenance, and once you've planted them there's generally not very much you need to do to look after them. But at this time of year, as you can see, lots of the peonies now have finished flowering and they've started putting forward their seed pods. So you can deadhead them, it's really simple. Just chop them back, just like this. It's not time to cut them back to the ground just yet. Wait till these plants have gone completely brown and died off, and then we'll cut them back to the base. But for now, the leaves are still green, the plant is still growing. We just want to deadhead them to tidy them up and keep the energy going back into the root. So if your peony has died back already and it's really beginning to struggle, don't jump the gun and cut it back just yet. Do wait until September, because the plant is still growing and it's putting lots of energy back into its roots, ready for next year. So here's another plant that's beginning to die back and has clearly finished flowering. It's a little bit early to cut it back to the ground yet. The plant hasn't completely died off for the winter, so it is a little bit early to do this, but I might as well show you how to do it. So when your plant has completely died, by that I mean it's gone brown and fallen over completely, just get it to the base, chop it nice and low, and that'll keep it steady and ready for next year.
Hello, I'm Mark and I'm from Todd's Botanics. We're going to do a short video for you today about cannas and the propagation of them. Cannas are a leafy plant. We get huge amounts of growth during the summer. Very colourful leaves and flowers. There's some images on the screen for you to see of the different colour flowers. We've got all sorts of leaf colour, greens, reds, purples, variegated leaves. Let me show you. So this is the leaf. It's a bit holy at the moment because the bugs have been at it in the winter. But that's a canna annii. We've got something with a nice dark shiny leaf, canna Australia. One of the variegated ones. This is I know this is canna pretoria, also known as striata, Bethany, or Tropicana Gold. But in my mind, the real name for this is canna pretoria. And you've got canna Durban, which is probably the best seller of all of the cannas. This amazing multicoloured leaf. We haven't got much in the way of flowers to show you because it's still very early. So these are some of the different flowers. This is one of the best ones. It's just opening, so you can just see the true colour. This is called canna Golden Orb. It's an amazing colour flower. So this is off a President. So it's an orange flower. Starting to go over some of these, so you can pull those off, clean the flower up. Something here. This is Creta, part of the Island series. It's a really good, really bright red on a green leaf. And this is just opening. You can see all these are still to open. But this is the orange flower that will open and be quite blousy, which is the same flower for both of these two, the Pretoria and the Durban. So we've got lots of colour choice in flower, lots of colour choice in leaf, and lots of choice in height. So we've got ones like the Happy series, which are all dwarf, compact ones, will grow to about that size, ideal for a container. Or you've got ones like the canon mozafolia, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that will grow, well, I mean, it'll be hitting the roof in this tunnel by July. So we've got huge variation, so there's something for everyone. Normally at home, they die down in the winter to the ground, and you just get a rhizome that's you need to protect. They're not completely frost hardy. Best advice is treat them like a dahlia tuber. So lift, dry store. If they're in a pot, put the pot somewhere sheltered, against the side of a house, in a shed. We actually find that we can get away with leaving them in the ground and mulching the ground to give a bit more insulation and warmth, and that's enough, as long as you've got good drainage. So this raised bed has got canna mozafolia in it. This is one of the most exciting cannas. It's not really known for its flower. It does have a flower, but it's quite insignificant. And lots of people won't get it to flower because you don't get flowers until it's sort of 10, 12 feet tall, which in this tunnel and in the garden, absolutely we can do. It's fantastic, huge green leaves and massive growth. It's a really exciting plant to watch. in these beds, we plant up about, depending on the variety, 25 to 50 plants in a bed. And then when we're ready to lift, we'll replant the same amount, but we'll put new topsoil in here. So this is a clump I just dug up. That's what we want to see, nice fleshy rhizome. So this is giving us great big pieces that we can replant. So something like this, with only one shoot, we'll actually put that one back in the ground because that will carry on producing me lots more shoots. Something like this is absolutely perfect. We'll put that straight into a 3-litre pot, and in 5 or 6 weeks it'll be ready for sale. Lovely shoot there. This shoot will keep going, so they're really nice. So we start digging them up and we grade them into what size pot they're going into. So these are 3-litre. If this one was going into a pot, we'd put this into a 5-litre because that will produce us half a dozen shoots. There we go. So what I'll show you now is how we actually divide a clump. So we've dug this up from the ground, and now we're ready to make some plants from it. So it's a bit brutal to start with. Start breaking it apart. I like to tear it apart as much as possible because that way we retain more of these roots. So if I'd kept on cutting, I'd have severed all these roots. So let's put this piece to one side for a second. And what we've got here, we've got 2 very definite shoots, but there's probably a bit more to find in here as well. That's got a second shoot coming, that's got a second shoot coming. There's a piece off here. So we're going to go between these 2 here as a starter. Right, so again, just cut the top part. So we just start cutting the rhizome. And then, I was a bit lucky there. Broken the top, that's all right. That will keep growing. We've got a nice, healthy plant. And there for potting. Ah, look. So down here, we've got lots of rhizomes. So that'll actually be 2 bigger plants. So what I think I'll do in this, I'm going to try and take this off. In fact, that's going to be one that we replant, because if I take this shoot off here, which would make a lovely plant, I'm going to end up ruining all the rest of this rhizome. That's a great big hunk of rhizome. So that's going to be one of the ones that go back in the bed for next time. So if we get a look in here, we can see we've got lots of little shoots just coming. So we've got to carefully get the knife in the right place. So it's okay. That's absolutely perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Nice strong shoot, lots of root. They'll be rooted in a few weeks. Now, rather than cut this, because I'm going to risk doing too much damage to these roots, I'm going to twist it off like you would when you're picking an apple and you get it and twist it off the branch. So that one we'll actually put back in this bed because he's a bit too small to go into a 3-litre. We do a 1-litre range as well, but for canon mozafolia it grows so quickly, putting it into a 1-litre is a bit of a waste of time because it would need to be repotted in weeks. So there's a perfect one for 3-litre there. So these bits of rhizome, they're a bit damaged now, but there's still growth in there. That will probably still grow and produce a plant. But what we'll do is that'll be one of the ones we put back in the ground. I wouldn't want to put that in the pot. I'm going to cut away some of this old growth. You can see it's still very fleshy. It holds moisture really well. The benefit of that is if you're not very good at watering them in pots, they hold their moisture. The other great thing is they can cope with being overwatered. So you could literally stand these in a pool of water and they would cope with it. That. Lovely. So that's perfect, 3-litre size. Cut this dead growth down. So again, that's going to be something I'm going to put back in the ground. Unfortunately, I've got more that I want to put back in the ground than I want to pot up, but it's always the way. Ah, disaster. I've cut through a healthy shoot. Oh, that's upsetting when we do that. Ruined, I've ruined that one. But we have got that one underneath it, so that's something. Oh, look at that. Gold. 3 healthy shoots, absolutely perfect. That's a replant. And that's what I'm looking to achieve. Nice, strong, healthy growth, more shoots coming from the base, lots of root, nice chunky bit of rhizome. That will make an absolutely fantastic plant in a 3-litre pot. I might as well talk about our new pots while we're at it. We've moved to a bag system because they're made from recycled plastic, and they are a lot thinner than a pot, so we're physically using a lot less plastic. So I know there's other options, tote pots, recyclable pots. We felt that it's more realistic that people will not recycle a pot, so we start with a recycled product. We think that's a better way around, but we'll see how we get on. They're a bit more fiddly to pot with, but the plants like it. They're nice and deep. They're good pots.